Alright, sorry for the dramatic intro. There's nobody watching anyway, so it is all good. Um, the song actually fits America right now, and it's probably going to try to play that again, so we'll just cut that off. Um, Interestingly enough, some of the things in what I want to talk about tonight do tie into what is in my other two episodes of the 2026 version of JD's overview. Um, we're going to obviously talk about the title there Kendrick Lamar Johnson. Um, this one is a little bit closer to home. It's a little bit less broad of a subject, but it's going to tie into my broad subjects that I've been going on and ranting about and all of that recently. So, I've got Wikipedia page stuff here. I've got DOJ stuff pulled up, and I have an article that was released today, well, yesterday on the 5th, and it is from 11 Alive. This is Atlanta, and I do want to shout out to 11 Alive real quick. They have covered this thing for a long time since it happened. I think 2013, and even the station I work at covered this back then, and I worked there at the time as well. So I'm just gonna read this, and then we will get to it. We're going to talk about the case. We're going to talk about what happened. Obviously, a lot of people know the story, but if anybody happens to catch this that doesn't know the story, we're going to go over everything. But first, I want to just read the article that came out today, because this is pretty much the closest we're going to get to what is currently going on. So this is from directly from Atlanta. A family's $1 billion lawsuit against law enforcement and local agencies involved in the 2013 South Georgia death of Kendrick Johnson has been dismissed on various grounds, though a federal judge acknowledged concern about the inconsistencies in the case that linger more than a dozen years later. The Johnson family has already filed a notice of appeal, court records show, and in a statement issued Thursday, assailed the dismissal as unprecedented and unconstitutional, which, given some of the things we'll discuss tonight, I'm all for that. Kendrick was 17 at the time when he was found dead at Loans, Loans. I've never been there. I don't know how to say it. Loans High School. He was found dead at Loans High School in 2013 inside a rolled gym mat. Now, I'm just going to stop there for a second. I remember at the time this coming out. See, I'm a junior that year, as I had just quit school. I did go back to graduate, but I had quit for a year, so I had quit at the time. I remember talking about this case and everything at the TV station. I remember how big of a thing it was. Nobody, I mean, when you hear that, you hear somebody rolled up into a mat, and it's probably one of the strangest things anybody would hear. Like the first thing you can think about when you hear rolled up into a gym mat is somebody rolled this guy up into a gym mat. Somebody killed him and rolled him up into a gym mat. That is without any evidence. That's without any context, without anything at all. Your first reaction should be somebody killed this man and put him in a gym mat. The fact that somebody would even suggest that he was picking up shoes or something out of the bottom that had fallen in there, it's just absolutely ridiculous. It makes no sense. So anyways, we'll go back a little bit and keep going with the article that came out today. Kendrick was 17 at the time, found dead at Loans High School in 2013 inside a rolled gym mat. His family has raised questions about his death on multiple occasions. Officially ruled an accident that occurred as he reached for a pair of shoes inside the mat, falling in and suffocating for years. Before I go on to the next paragraph, it is, to my understanding, that the shoes he was supposedly grabbing were already on the gym floor outside of the mat. This is the genius of Georgia. Georgia is such a beautiful place. It is a shame our government can't get their act together. It is a shame that the GBI can't get their act together. I mean, I've got a million complaints on Georgia when it comes to the government, the law enforcement. It's absolutely ridiculous. They're stuck in fucking 1922 with their everything they believe. It is absolutely ridiculous. It's time for a change in Georgia, and I'm not necessarily saying make it blue or make it red. I'm just saying, I don't know. I don't know. I'll stop there with that because we're going to get back to that. All right, continuing. The case has long garnered widespread attention as the family insisted foul play was involved and accused agencies from the GBI to area investigative authorities in Valdosta to the local school district of a cover-up. Among the most salient issues, U.S. District Judge Sarah, I don't want to butcher the name, but Judge Sarah Girardi noted in dismissing the lawsuit this week. So among the salient issues is surveillance video from inside the school that was published by CNN in 2013. We are going to look at that, in which an independent analyst hired by the news network determined had been altered and that key footage was missing. Now, first of all, going back to this, what does that sound like? You know, if somebody goes through my computer or your computer at home, we are going to continue with the article, by the way, but just listen to me here. If somebody goes through your computer, say the FBI is investigating me, or they're investigating you, go through your computer, you could delete stuff, you could try to hide stuff, you can edit files, but at the end of the day, they've got guys that can see what happened to the files. How come when it comes to something that the government has control over, which is school security cameras, and I'm not saying the entire government as a whole, I'm saying the government of Georgia right now, specifically, how come there has been, I mean, we're dealing with the death of a high school student. Come on, it's not like we're trying to, it's not like somebody was killed for a position of power or some ridiculous garbage, or they might have been. I mean, hell, the FBI is into organ harvesting. We all know that came out to be true. Maybe it's not just the FBI or the CIA or Epstein or whatever. Somebody's into organ harvesting, and I can't even say it's the FBI because it could be somebody that uses the FBI. It could be somebody that uses the CIA or the GBI or whatever. But once again, I'm connecting it all before I finish reading it, so I'm just gonna continue. You know, my point was there, real quick. My point was that they can find anything they want on me, but for some reason, when it's government equipment, oh, things just mess up and we can't figure out what happened. No, it's absolutely ridiculous. I don't buy it. I never bought it. I don't buy it with the Epstein stuff. I don't buy it with Kendrick Lamar Johnson, and I don't buy it in any other case. I do not buy that things were just lost. That surveillance video was central to the lawsuit's claims against Lowndes County schools in this case, but Judge Girardi ruled it was outside a 2-year statute of limitations. Statute of limitations is a great way of a government telling their people that they don't want to spend the money on something. That's not, I don't even think that's an opinion. I'm damn sure that's a fact. Every time I hear statute of limitations, I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean there's a statute of limitations to evidence? It makes no sense. It's one thing I'll never understand about, one of the many things I'll never understand about the justice system. It's really just the money system. Continuing with 11 Alive's article from today. The facts supporting plaintiff's claims became apparent no later than November 21st, 2013, when CNN published its article. Plaintiffs filed this action nearly 10 years later, the judge noted. Other issues that have been raised in the case concern the quality of local investigation. The judge's order quoted the local coroner reporting, "The investigative climate was very poor to worse when I arrived on the scene, and that law enforcement did not cooperate with with him. Kendrick's body had been moved in a sealed body bag, and the sealed body bag had been opened." So let me repeat that because I stuttered a little bit there. Law enforcement did not cooperate with him. Kendrick's body had been moved, and the sealed body bag had been opened. Investigator gets there. Body bag has been opened. Organs are missing. I'd say that's when if that's true, I'd say that's when the organs went missing. Sometime between body bag and investigator arriving. So the police probably know something. The coroner probably knows something, and it's no surprise because we've heard it all before. You've seen it in movies, which is absolutely ridiculous because it's almost like people are trying to tell us something when they make these movies. But that's just a conspiracy. It's absolutely mind-blowing. We've heard it before, replacing bodies. We're hearing it with the Epstein thing still. I don't think it's a replaced body. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is somebody messed with his body. Somebody took his organs out. It was either the coroner, someone forced the coroner to do it, or whatever you call the person that cuts open a body. I think there's a better name for it. It's just, it's absolutely ridiculous. We've all heard the stories. An official report from the sheriff's office released in 2022 after the investigation was reopened also included a diagram suggesting that the opening in the mat was only 14 inches wide. This is a guy rolled up in a mat, and the opening on the mat is measured at 14 inches wide, making it narrower than Kendrick's shoulder width, which was measured at 19 inches. The Lowndes County Sheriff that year affirmed the death as accidental. So to comment on that, Kendrick was not 400 pounds. Kendrick did not have enough pressure coming from his legs and torso to shove him into a very thick, heavy, mind you folks, I've rolled these things up. I've rolled these mats up. I know how heavy these mats are. He wasn't big enough. He was not big enough to fall in. I mean, yes, you could be reaching for something, right? But we're dealing with a high school 17-year-old student. I don't think any 17-year-old student is stupid enough to not drop the mat, unroll it. Even if you don't want to deal with rolling it back up and putting it up, I tell you what I would have done if I would have dropped something in there. I would have knocked that sucker down, unrolled it, grabbed what I needed, and left. I would have left it for the janitor. Like I said, you find somebody rolled up into a mat, it is absolutely ridiculously stupid, idiotic, retarded, whatever you want to say, to conclude that it was accidental and that they were not murdered. Continuing with the 11 Alive's article. Outside autopsies commissioned by the family also showed blunt force trauma. Now, this is a family going outside of the original autopsy, whoever did the original autopsy, getting their own private. I'm pretty sure the body got dug up for this. So, we're having a body dug out of a ground because of someone's gut instinct, and I think it's a nation of gut instinct is what happened here. And so it happened. Body comes out, autopsy, new autopsy, done by a private person. I don't know the name. The name could be out there. Showed blunt force trauma, not accidental positional asphyxiation, which is what the first one had said. And that was officially reported too. So, they've long contended Kendrick was murdered by classmates, and like I've said a million times already, when Kendrick's body was returned to the family, it was also missing his brain and other internal organs. Judge Girardi's order noted. So that's the judge saying that. That's the judge putting that into record that organs are missing. So I was talking about harvesting organs earlier. Um, I don't know. Let's see. Let me just finish this paragraph so I can get my thoughts out properly. Thursday's statement said that the family received new evidence in the last year of recently discovered crime scene photos of a deformity in Kendrick's head consistent with the skull fracture. Nonetheless, the judge dismissed the remainder of the lawsuit against 4 other defendants. Two of them news companies that previously covered the case, as well as the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and Lowndes County. Don't ask me what I think of judges. I'll get shot. The federal judge found the GBI could not be sued. You know, the federal judge found the GBI could not be sued, as it is covered by sovereign immunity provisions as an arm of the state. The action against the county, the judge determined, could not proceed because it had not been properly served. The news companies succeeded in having the suit dismissed against them on multiple procedural grounds. In addition to announcing they would appeal the decision, the family said they intended to file a complaint against Judge Girardi in the Federal District Court of Atlanta, which I think they should, though what precise form that complaint would take was unclear. I mean, I'm all for making legal complaints if it's going to do something, but we know it's not going to do anything. Especially when you're dealing with the federal government and the leaders of a state and the judges of a state and the lawyers of a state. At that level, state and federal, like, you know, you're not talking small stuff. You're not talking small money either. So, it'd be unclear about how they would make this complaint. But anyways, the family had filed a motion for the judge to recuse. Never heard that word. To recuse herself, which she denied. She wrote, "They have not pointed to any extrajudicial source of bias." Another bullshit statement. In a statement, Kendrick's father, Kenneth Johnson, said, "If the message is not clear enough, let me make it clear as crystal right now. Anyone, regardless of who you are, what position of power and influence you may hold, if you choose to join the murder cover-up scandal of my son Kendrick, you do so at your own peril." And that don't sound like a damn threat. It sounds like a promise. Judge Girardi wrote in conclusion, "The court again expresses its concern about the inconsistencies between the various official reports on Kendrick's death and plaintiff's allegations. However, after careful consideration, the undersigned concludes that plaintiff's claims cannot proceed." So you've got a 17-year-old kid, and we're going to put it into perspective here, because definitely don't think I've Definitely don't think anybody has called in. And you know what? One thing I also did not realize. So, we're definitely going to look at some things here. I'm going to have to edit this some way to make it a little bit better. Y'all can see me doing that right now, which is all good. I just want to look at some of these videos I had pulled up earlier, because you got a 17-year-old rolled up in a mat. As I said before, first impression should always be that that's a murder. No one, it is very unlikely, I would say the most unlikely scenario, to conclude that he just fell in there. And like I said, he's not heavy enough to push his shoulders in and all of this, like, just by falling. Like, and I don't think he would also put himself into a position to squeeze himself in tight or throw his arm up and just figure out how he can get in there. I don't see anybody doing that at all, ever. Just to get a pair of shoes out of a mat, you knock it down, you pull them out. So that's out the window. It's not true. It didn't happen that way. We know it didn't happen that way. And there's a lot more details to go over. So, aha, there we go. I just want everybody to hear this stuff. It's absolutely insane. And for this, we also need to turn the desktop audio up a little bit. I'm going to pull it up to 10. Test that out, see if that's right. First thing I want to look at is the CNN video that was mentioned.
CNN has hired Grant Fredericks and his team at Forensic Video Solutions to analyze the hundreds of hours of surveillance from Lowndes High School. Although he does not believe the jumpy video is the result of editing, he says there are some other major problems.
Those files are not original files. They're not something that an investigator should rely on for the truth of the video. They've been altered in a number of ways, primarily in image quality, and likely in dropped information loss. There are also a number of files that are corrupted because they've not been processed correctly and they're not playable. So I can't say why they were done that way, but they were not done correctly.
I'm pretty good with computers. I'm pretty good with data structures, and I'm good enough at coding that I can tell you there was no power outage that day. There was no internet outage that day. There was no internet outage reported in the area that day at all, and no power outages reported in the area that day at all, or in the school. If there were, or if somebody who was lying would have been smart enough, you would have heard a story about this. But no, nothing like that reported, just missing evidence. And so that right there proves it's a murder. I don't care what any judge says. I don't care what anybody on either side of the story says. That proves it's murder, that there is evidence missing. We'll go further.
And they were not done thoroughly, so we're missing information.
Fredericks says that's likely due to how investigators acquired the surveillance video.
Right now, what they've done is they have left it up to the school district to define what it is they want to provide the police. And I think that probably is a mistake.
According to Lowndes County Sheriff's Office incident reports, a detective watched a portion of the surveillance video the day Kendrick Johnson was found. Then he asked the school board's information technology worker for a copy of the surveillance video for the entire wing of the school with the old gym for the last 48 hours. 5 days later, that IT worker provided a hard drive, and according to the incident report, the detective verified it contained the requested surveillance video.
So the investigator's responsibility is to acquire the entire digital video recording system and then have their staff define what they want to obtain. You don't want somebody who might be party to the responsibility to make the decision as to what they provide the police.
And after hours of analysis, Fredericks questions whether Lowndes County Schools provided all of the surveillance video from the old gym to investigators.
There is a whole of time where none of the cameras provide any record that I've been provided.
Fredericks has all the camera angles and all the video released by the Lowndes County Sheriff's Office.
There are 4 cameras in the gym.
By the way, I think the total amount of cameras that he had footage on was 36. It might have been 26. It was either 26 or 36 different cameras. And I want to keep in mind here, only the cameras that Kendrick would have been spotted on, to my knowledge, unless they're holding other things back that we don't know, to my knowledge from everything that's been released, only the cameras he would have been seen on at the time of his death are the cameras missing footage.
That records motion from when the lights turn on in the morning until when the lights are turned off at night, except for the area of interest.
The moments before Kendrick Johnson enters the gym. Look at what happens to the recordings from these 4 cameras in the gym. The time is recorded with the video. The first camera captures images from the start of the day until 12:04 p.m. Then, nothing. It picks up again at 1:09 p.m. There's consistent surveillance from the second camera until 11:05 a.m. Then it stops and picks up again more than 2 hours later at 1:15 p.m. The third camera also drops at 11:05 a.m. It picks up again at 1:16 p.m. And from the final camera, there's surveillance until 12:04 p.m., no recording for more than an hour, then it picks up again at 1:09 p.m.
I would absolutely expect there to be some record of that activity, and we don't have any here.
Here's why Fredericks would have expected the motion-activated system to record during that time.
I bet it's because it's a motion-activated system, and he was in there, and there was a murder going on. I mean, I'm not being sarcastic to this guy that did the investigating. He's the guy telling the truth. I'm just,
During that hour and 5 minutes, several students are seen walking into and out of the old gym from the surveillance camera just outside the gym door. We count 7 male students, and 3 of them walk into the gym within 3 minutes prior to Kendrick Johnson walking in.
I can't tell you whether there was no information recorded in the digital video system, or whether somebody made an error and didn't capture it, or whether somebody just didn't provide it.
When surveillance in the gym resumes at 1:09, we see just these few frames of Kendrick Johnson running in the gym. Here's that moment from all of the cameras in the gym, although there's a record from only 2, and the camera just outside the door. Notice, the hall camera timestamp appears to be 10 minutes behind, and there's no confirmation either time matches the exact time of day. It is the last time his image is captured on video. For the next hour, there are multiple gaps in the video surveillance in the gym.
And that is crucial. It's a really important time.
Well, it really is the only option to answer the question, really what happened.
And there's no video showing the initial discovery of a body in the gym. The next time we see Kendrick Johnson is the following day when he's being wheeled out of the gym in a body bag.
Do you believe it's a coincidence that that time period in the gym is missing?
Oh boy. Investigators are always suspicious and should be suspicious. And it's suspicious that that time period is not there. So yes, I would be suspicious.
It's more than
until
suspicious.
I have the digital video system in my hand, until I can say, or an investigator can say, everything is intact, this was what's recorded, I would still be highly suspicious of this.
So after fighting for months on a city street corner and in the county courthouse to get the surveillance video, Kendrick Johnson's parents still do not know who was in the gym before Kendrick ran in, nor who, if anyone, was there or what happened in those moments after.
So with the video footage, we already discussed it there being lapses in video. But it's interesting to me that the students that were seen going into the gym around the time, within the same hour or so that he would have been killed, those students, as far as I know, have not been named or identified. Now, there are some suspects. And, you know, as far as right now, the case is closed. But as far as the public's concerned, it's an open social case. I'm going to call it a social case. It's just a joke. Whoops, my bad. Went to hit the mute button and didn't realize my mute button also controlled YouTube. So, once again, students not being identified that were definitely around at the time that he died. And there are some other people that we're going to name, but as far as I know, none of these people are those students that were seen there. So some of these other suspects could have gone in a different way, been in there all day. Who knows? But another thing I want to mention about the security footage is hacking is not hard. And around 2006, 7, information was flooding the internet already for 10, 15 years, or at least the public internet. And it was not hard for a teenager, let alone an adult, to figure out where a security system would be, how it operates. Security systems are very simple. Whether some of them are hackable or not, some of them are not. Some of them are not connected to a network, some of them are. And as far as that goes, when you're connected to a network and you've got a computer running a bunch of hard drives and surveillance equipment, you can hack into those things. It's easy to do it if there's a network involved, and if there's not a network involved, it's very easy for an adult or a kid to already know how to do these things and delete footage or edit footage or whatever the case may be. And we already know it was edited. It was said that the quality dropped. Okay, very easy to drop quality on a video. I could show you how to do it right now. And it's just, that's a possibility here, that the kids, whoever killed him, deleted the footage or edited the footage themselves. Once again, easy to break into a room, easy to edit footage, easy to delete footage. Doesn't matter who you are. Easy to hack into any system, even if there's no network. There's plenty of programs and things you can run on a USB or a CD that can destroy someone's system completely or give you access in an instant. I'm sorry to tell you, people, passwords don't make you safe. VPNs don't make you safe. There are people out there who can track a VPN across the world in 5 seconds. Maybe not 5 seconds, but in minutes, they can find out who you are. It doesn't matter where your computer says you are. It doesn't matter if you're wearing a mask. We are in the age of no more privacy. So get used to that. It's going to be a big adaptation for the world, and we are already there. A lot of people don't realize it, but we are already there. And that doesn't mean the world has to be a terrible, terrible place. Right now, it's a terrible place, but I believe there's hope for the future. I don't believe we're completely doomed. I just believe a big revolution is in order. So let's move on to the next thing. Organs missing. Another CNN video. This is the strangest thing, because organ harvesting can be many, many things. It could be for many reasons too. Some people, when it comes to organ harvesting that's been documented over the years, some people think it's for other humans. Some people think it's for other animals, like animal-human clone hybrids. Some people believe it's for aliens. Some people believe it's for crazy things like the existence of vampires and crazy stuff like that. And that's not necessarily, I don't want to say that's not true anymore, because we've reached a point in time where I'm not saying magic itself exists from a human standpoint, but evil certainly exists. So there are definitely people who probably think that they can become immortal by prolonging their life a little bit with different methods that they have discovered over the years using science. Point is, organ harvesting is real, and it was done to Kendrick Johnson. It was it was performed on him. It was, I don't even know how to say that. It's hard to grasp the words. Somebody harvested a man's organs. This is stuff that 20 years ago you hear on sci-fi. It's stuff that you hear on Hollywood movies or books that are fictional, and you just don't. I mean, yeah, there's always been organ donor, not always, but for a long time now there's been organ donors, but that is such a different word choice, such a different thing to say, you know. Oh, I'm an organ donor. Oh, my son's organs were harvested. Harvested. Harvest. Harvest organs. To harvest organs. What a weird thing to say. It's almost funny to say it because it's just a crazy realization that we're in 2026 and that is a thing that is in the public, and it's been in the public for a long time now, but it's just, it comes up over and over and over and over, and as this case gets dismissed again, or as this appeal gets dismissed again this year in 2026 by a federal judge, it's funny and sad and angering and really strange at the same time.
It's the second time Jacqueline Johnson cried next to her son Kendrick's grave.
12 years
ago. The first
ago.
time he was being lowered into the ground. This time he's being pulled out of it.
Did you ever expect you'd have to exhume his body?
No, I didn't expect to have to bury his body.
In June, Kendrick's body was sent to Florida. The Johnsons hired Dr. Bill Anderson to conduct an independent second autopsy. In that autopsy, Anderson told the Johnsons he'd found evidence that Kendrick died as the result of a blow to the neck and not accidental asphyxia after slipping into a rolled gym mat at school, as investigators in Georgia had said. But what Dr. Anderson did not find shocked them.
When we got the body for the second autopsy, that organs, the heart, lungs, liver, etc., were not with the body.
The brain?
The brain, they were all absent.
Every organ from the top of Kendrick's head to his pelvis gone, and his family.
If you're trying to cover up something that happened in a murder, you know, if you're trying to cover up that he was beaten or something, like if you're trying to cover something up at all with a body, with a dead body, I just don't see anyone removing their organs. I definitely could see that happening as a statement, as a ritualistic type thing, as an organ harvesting thing. I could see all of those. But to remove them as a cover-up would not make sense. And the reason I'm pausing here to say this is because countless times throughout this entire thing, from 2013 to now, you hear the words cover up, cover up, cover up, and I do believe there's a cover-up going on. However, there's reasons that are being stated. You know, there could be a cover-up for this reason or this reason or this reason. I think it's a much broader thing, and I'll get to my opinions on it here in a little bit. I'm waiting to tell you.
Well, he had no idea.
We have been let down again. And when we buried Kendrick, we thought we was burying Kendrick, not half of Kendrick.
I'm not sure at this point who did not return the organs to the body, but I know when we got the body, the organs were not there.
So, CNN contacted the two entities that had custody of Kendrick's body and access to his organs: the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, which conducted the first autopsy in January, and Harrington Funeral Home, which the Johnsons chose to embalm and prepare Kendrick's body for burial days later. A spokeswoman for the state tells CNN after its autopsy, the organs were placed in Johnson's body, the body was closed, then the body was released to the funeral home. State investigators say it's their normal practice, but what happened after his body arrived at the funeral home was anything but normal.
What was in the place of the organs?
Newspaper.
Newspaper.
Dr. Anderson showed me the pictures of Kendrick's body he'd taken during the second autopsy.
It's a Black Friday ad, J.C. Penney ad.
Yes.
Stuffing that newspaper in like it was a garbage can.
I'm gonna back that up because I want to get her full statement there. So, once again, they're saying organs were replaced, and they're gone out of nowhere. But going back to what I said earlier, the organs are missing, and the body has been stuffed with newspaper. Now, if a kid removed the organs, if a teenager or multiple teenagers removed the organs, I'm sitting there thinking this is a statement, or it's some kind of ritualistic thing, spiritualistic thing, something evil, something dark, or something that they thought they were doing, and they're just crazy, right? That's where I'm at with the kids. With an adult doing this, you put the newspaper in the body to cover something up, but you're also inflating the body. You don't want anybody to notice that the organs weren't there. So there's another problem. Somebody didn't want somebody or the world to know that the organs weren't there. So that points more to harvested organs for whatever reasons that an adult would have, or a rich person would have, or the GBI would have, or the FBI would have, or the CIA would have, or anybody in the American government would have. We know plenty of governments that do crazy things with bodies already. We know plenty of dark cults and things that have been exposed, and all of this crazy Pizzagate, vampire, Epstein stuff, all of this crazy stuff that we hear about. It's very clear to me that yes, some kids may have killed him. Yes, an adult may have killed him. I think we're dealing with a conspiring thing here, and I gotta choose my words carefully. The people who conspired together to do this were working for something much bigger, and I think some kids were manipulated into doing this for somebody, a big entity. And I'll tell you who I think that is too.
J.C. Penney ad.
Yes.
Stuffing that newspaper in like it was a garbage can inside his body. It's unbelievable.
Ink all over over the
that's
newspaper
a
as well.
different kind of pain.
Yep.
Why do you think that there would be newspaper stuffed in your child?
I never heard of that before. Never.
Neither had the founder of a National Embalming Academy contacted by CNN, who said it's not consistent with the standards of care in the industry.
And the people that take these organs, surely you would choose a family to do this to. You would choose a family that is clearly not a family driven by conspiracies. They're clearly a family home family. I don't know another way to put it. I don't want to say cookie cutter, but they're a cookie cutter family, a beautiful family. Kendrick was not a troublemaker. Nobody's into, as far as I know, not into any gang activities. I know that South Georgia, closer to Atlanta and things like that, that can be a little, it could be a little gang ridden around there. But as far as I know, there are no records of that here. Nobody has come out and said that. In fact, any murder could be staged to look like a gang killing. In fact, in a state with Atlanta as its capital, it would almost be like that would be the perfect way to do it. So it's even more astonishing that whoever tried to cover this up didn't come up with something better. The problem with covering these things up is that there are too many holes left. There are way too many holes. Organs missing, footage missing, witness statements that don't line up. Not witness statements as in they witnessed what happened, but witness statements as in people at school that day who had may have seen him go into the gym or come out of the gym or in the gym or whatever. You know, as far as I know, there's no witness statements to the murder. However, we also know that the FBI did not release all of the documents involved.
Nor had the president of the National Association of Medical Examiners, who told CNN he's never heard of this practice.
My point of saying all of that was that it is so easy for a big entity, which I'm convinced a big entity did this, a large entity. It is so convenient for them to stage a murder. Why leave all of these holes? And if it was a bunch of kids that did it, even for a big entity, like, how were they not trained better to do this? There are too many holes. There's too much stupidity in the murder. It just doesn't make any sense. The whole thing does not make any sense.
Why would the funeral home discard his organs and stuff them with newspaper?
The question is, why did he tell us?
So what exactly did the Harrington Funeral Home do with Kendrick's organs? And why was he stuffed with old newspaper? We went to their office to find out, but their response to us? No comment. However, in a letter to the Johnsons' attorney, Harrington Funeral Home owner Antonio Harrington denies he received Kendrick's organs. He writes in part, his internal organs were destroyed through natural process and henceforth were discarded before the body was sent back to Valdosta. It's another disappointing answer for parents determined to know what happened to their son before and now after his death. And they admit they're struggling.
If somebody ever sees this that has worked in these places, actually know someone who does autopsies, I might reach out and see what they think about this case. Definitely too late to do it right now. But I call bullshit, first of all. They know exactly what happened. Another thing that points to a large entity is anytime the FBI or the CIA or their federal government, I'm not going to say specifically which one, by the way, I'm not suicidal at all. I don't think I've ever been fully realistically suicidal as a teenager and a young adult. I was depressed and had issues sometimes that I promise you, I am not suicidal. So the FBI and the CIA and the American government, they have been known to show up at people's places of work when people were promoting or saying or doing things that the government did not want out. It's stupid. It reminds me of that 70s show episode, or the multiple that 70s show episodes, where Hyde mentions a guy that creates a car, that runs on water, and he's freaking out about it. Well, there's a true story to that. Guy creates a car that can run on water, disappears, dies, something happens to the dude, never to be heard from again. The story ends. That has happened multiple times, and it is all documented. And there are many, many conspiracies that lead directly to the government trying to cover it up so they can continue to make money off of oil and gases and all of this. So the point I'm getting to is many recorded stories of them covering things up. It does not surprise me that the funeral home has nothing to say about it, because if this was a practice when things, if an organ liquefies, and by the way, that's not what happened. They say that's what happened. We all know that's not what happened because there was not enough time for that to happen. Or at least that's, to my understanding, there wasn't enough time for that to happen. Unless somebody like made him drink sulfuric acid or something. I don't know. That's just, it doesn't make any sense once again. But my point being, I could definitely see somebody forcing their way into the funeral home, and manipulating a body. It could also be a situation as simple as, it's not some kind of grand conspiracy, organ harvesting thing. It could be as simple as somebody's got to deal with a hospital. Somebody's got to deal with a hospital or hospitals or colleges to where they're just stealing people's organs. If you want to know what I think right now in the moment, that sounds more plausible than some grand conspiracy of organ harvesting for crazy, evil, dark reasons. But we can't ignore those conspiracy theories or those ideas because of everything else going on in the world. So,
Unbearable, just about. Only thing that wakes you up in the morning is just to keep pushing.
Victor Blackwell joins us now. This is unbelievable. A newspaper inside this young man's body. I understand there's an investigation into where Kendrick Johnson's organs went and why. What do we know about it?
Well, Anderson, we contacted the Georgia Secretary of State's office because they issued licenses to funeral homes. We wanted to check on the history of Harrington Funeral Home. And when we told them why we were calling, they decided that they too wanted to know, where are Kendrick Johnson's organs? And they wanted to know more about this process, this practice of stuffing bodies with newspapers, something that they'd never heard of either.
How was the family's autopsy doctor able to determine the cause of death then?
Yeah, I asked him, if the organs aren't there, how can you determine how Kendrick died? Well, he says that essentially blunt force trauma was not in the organs. It was in the right side jaw, which was actually noted as bruised during the paramedics report on the day he was found. He dissected the jaw, which had not been dissected in the first autopsy, found bleeding under the skin. He dissected the left side as well, did not find the bleeding, and he concluded that that bruising indicated, also with the bleeding, that there was blunt force trauma, that Kendrick took that blow to the neck.
Victor, one thing I hadn't noticed, and actually a viewer...
Before he mentions what he hadn't noticed, what I hadn't noticed is that the mats were down. In this video, it looks like the mats were down on the ground. So another reason, and I'd mentioned earlier that I think they were standing up. I thought they were standing up because of something I had seen prior to starting this podcast tonight, but clearly they're down here. Another reason to say that he's not climbing in the thing. Another reason to say that. I mean, just unroll it. Also, if it's down on the ground, whether it was up or down, if it's up, he's not heavy enough to fall in. If it's down on the ground, he's definitely not doing it that way. Definitely not forcing himself in. I don't think he's strong enough to crush his body that way. And if he is, he's not stupid enough. Once again, we're dealing with a 17-year-old boy, a man at this point in his life. No one is stupid enough to put them in a situation to where they're going to get stuck so many possibilities. There are so many possibilities on what could have happened. And we'll keep getting into it.
Who works...
There's still a lot of things that we haven't even talked about. And it's absolutely ridiculous that there are this many holes in an investigation. I've seen holes in investigations before. I've done deep dives, very, 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 very deep dives, to where I'm studying things for years and years and years. I have never seen anything like this. I mean, as far as a one-off situation goes, I've seen things like this on a greater scale that are just insane, but I've never seen anything like this on such a small scale. A murder in a high school that has this many holes in the story. And with so many conflicting views and stories that are already out there by the news and I'm not saying that CNN's conflicting or anything with themselves or with anybody else. I'm just saying there's so many conflicting witness statements to, as far as students and friends from the school on that day. There are suspects that we haven't gotten into that also have conflicting things. There's a guy in a jail that supposedly writes a letter, and nobody knows if it's really from the guy or from somebody else. I'll tell you what I think about that too when we get to it, because another thing, it's another thing that just makes me think that it's some bigger entity. They like to blame people that have gone crazy. It's been public for years now that the CIA used Charles Manson. I don't know if the FBI was involved, but it's been known for a long time that Charles Manson was the way he was because he was a part of different tests and experiments in and outside of jail where he was given an extreme amount of hallucinogens and crazy, terrible things happened because of it. And there was no apology ever. And it's also known that they're involved, the CIA is involved in things like the Tuskegee experiment, which everybody knows about that as well. These are all public files. So, excuse me if I sound like a conspiracy theorist when I say the FBI or the CIA or the GBI or the state of Georgia had something to do with the disappearance of his organs. They probably had something to do with the covering up of it. Something vile and disgusting happened that day, and I think we'll narrow it down a little bit to as far as all of these crazy possibilities as to whether it was a fight, a murder by teenagers, a murder by adults, a murder by multiple teenagers who were under the influence of adults. There's all these different possibilities, and we'll try to narrow it down as much as possible.
And Jim's noticed and tweeted me about this the other day was that it looks like all the mats are rolled really tightly, except for the one that Kendrick was found in. That seems to have had a large opening.
And those things are heavy, heavy, heavy. If they're the mats that I'm thinking about, they are heavy. And it would be really hard to kind of squeeze your way in there and push it open enough to get your way in and not be able to get out at the same time. I understand the physics on how that would happen. I understand how an idiot could get around to literally an idiot. I could understand how an idiot could get stuck and things like that, but we're not dealing with an idiot here. We're dealing with a 17-year-old boy, and I just don't think that especially if you're the type of person who plays basketball and you've got good coordination and you live in Georgia too, so chances are you've been outside in some wooded areas. Even if you live in the dead center of Atlanta, you've been around some wooded areas. You know what your body can handle. People from Georgia are not stupid when it comes to stuff like that. At least not in my mind. And if they are, I don't even want to say they are, because I just don't see that as a plausible thing. I don't see someone being that stupid to where nobody's around and they just put themselves in this position. And now that we know the organs are gone and the skull fracture and the brain is missing, you know it was a murder. You know it was a murder. So there is a video I watched earlier that I don't know if I can find the specific
in a Georgia
section of the video, and we'll look for it in a minute. I want to play this, and then I'm going to see if I can find that section in this video where the man he's talking about the man from jail, and he also brings up the multiple people, the multiple suspects, because I mean, I didn't write their names down or anything. I found this case so bizarre, and I've known about it for years, but after seeing the new release today, it kind of brought it all back up, and it's something I definitely wanted to talk about. Normally I talk about broader, different things that are on more of a broad scale. I just wanted to get away from the politics and kind of look at this and see how, we can tie it into some of the crazy shit that's going on in our country today, and it's been going on forever. This isn't all about, Republican versus Democrat. This is about good versus evil, and evil's attempt to cover things up, but leaving massive holes in stories. And really, when you leave a massive hole in a story, you just leave room for yourself to get caught. So that doesn't make any sense either.
The Lowndes County Sheriff is investigating new possible evidence in the case of a teen found dead in a high school gym. Kendrick Johnson's family say they recently obtained a recording of someone who may be confessing to killing him. The 17-year-old was found dead in a rolled-up gym mat in his high school 8 years ago. An autopsy ruled his death an accident, but his family has always believed he was killed. They turned over the 25-second recording to the sheriff earlier this week.
So some mats were standing up.
And I quote, "They're gonna catch me anyways. I should have never done this. I was young and stupid. Kendrick didn't deserve this, man." A couple of seconds go by, and he ends with a very tearful, "They're gonna catch me anyways."
The family says the audio was secretly recorded by the person's family member who sold it to them for $1,000. Lowndes County Sheriff Ashley Polk says they are working to authenticate the clip and will ask the GBI for help. He also confirmed the recording may possibly be someone already questioned in the case. Earlier this month, the sheriff announced he was reopening this case after getting new evidence from a federal investigation.
Experience Japan on a journey customized.
So that's 4 years ago. That it's been closed again, mind you. Now, let's get into the good stuff, because this is where I think the answer is hidden. And one good reason to do stuff like this, it's not because I want to be, the guy to figure it out or anything. I think it's just good to keep these conversations alive, because there is an astonishing amount of cases that have been solved by the help of the internet and by bringing facts together in a certain way. So if 25 different people bring facts together and they all look at them in their own way and they all come up with their own conclusions, the likelihood of someone being right is very, very high. So there's not only that, but people tell stories in different ways. So it's very important to realize that once you've got 25 different people telling a story or telling their account of a story, that you're going to hear different ideas and different possibilities as well. So you've got a bunch of different possibilities, a bunch of different ways of telling a story, and when you do that, something gets loose. I mean, that's how Arthur Lee Allen was discovered to be the Zodiac killer. They don't care what anybody says. They could say it's an open case because there's no real hardcore evidence that links Arthur Lee Allen to the Zodiac killings, but it's just another case that was solved by jogging some things loose. And once again, the government failed at that point in time, which there's a lot more leeway back then because of different things that we did not have as far as technology goes. But no matter the case, no matter what you're looking at, it happened. So the idea of keeping free speech going, keeping these stories alive, and this one sits very close to home because it's solved, but its details are a little unsolved as far as I know. And if any of my family sees this and wants to correct me, that's fine. But as far as I know, there was a murder in my family, and the lack of investigation caused not many details to come out. And it is a very similar age to Kendrick. Very close. I think maybe 1 year off. And once again, it's another situation where we got a healthy kid gets murdered and there's no answer as to why. Now, I believe somebody was arrested for this. I could also be wrong because it's a big family and we all repeat things as soon as we hear it, so we can all kind of stay informed as to what's going on. But there's also some people who probably didn't have the best knowledge of what was going on. So this one does sit close. Now, before I go in, because I've been going for like an hour here, before I go into this video, I am going to run my info screen. There. And if you don't mind, I am going to take a short break. At least 3 minutes here. Or 2 minutes. It's got to be talked about. The suspects have to be talked about. And I'm not doing it because, I don't think it's all of the suspects. I just don't think that this many suspects would be free to go and calm and okay because most of the suspects are kids. I just don't think that if it was all of them that they would all have been quiet about it. There's supposedly a recording of a confession, and there's supposedly a letter of a confession. Or at least these are the things that I'm hearing. It's also hard to get details when not everything is public. Very hard to get details on things. So for the times that I am going to be wrong, bear with me, because if it's something that I can research and figure out that I'm right, I'm very okay with going back and saying that I was wrong. But it's hard to research a case like this. And I hope that one day all of the information becomes public, because this isn't just about saving the story of one kid anymore. It's not just about closure for the family. When you have this many things involved, there's something bigger at play, and there's something to be said about the justice system when this happens. There's something to be said about the GBI, the FBI, the CIA, and I understand the CIA is not involved in this at all. I'm just referring to other incidents. There's something to be said about a case like this with this many large holes that points to something bigger. There's something we can learn from it about our government. There is something that we can do about it. And that is to keep speaking and bring it to light so people can get arrested. I'm hoping the justice system will see changes within the next 20 years, because if it doesn't, all of the things that are happening now are just going to get worse. They're under the impression that they can cover everything up, and I just don't think that that's fair. All governments do it. I do not think that it's fair. I think that, voting people in is fair. I do think that that's a fair idea, but it's not been fair the last however many elections. There's always fraud that gets exposed. And the way they try to set it up for us to where we can be free citizens, it works to some degree, but not all of the time. So it's a big problem. And there are clearly people in control that shouldn't be in control of things. And this investigation is just one of the thousands of stories that prove this, that prove that something is wrong with the justice system. So, having said that, I will be right back. All right. And I'm about to come back to do the rest of this here. I think it's important to remember that there is a family hurting. So, for all of this, I think we should just be remembering them and trying to respect their story and their needing a closure. See, I think that this is way bigger than needing closure, but that's just me. That's not me. I mean, it's not them. That is just me. From the public eye, from someone like a conspiracy theorist or someone who believes in crazy conspiracies or even conspiracies that are believable, or to a regular person, all of this would interest them way more than this is going to interest someone that would be in the Johnson family. So it is very important to remember to respect them, and I do feel like spreading this story and for everyone sharing their opinions about it, I do feel like that's the right option for us. For them, it's to keep searching for closure. It's to keep pressing the government. It's to keep doing whatever they can. So, I'm going to find this, and then I'll switch back to my screen share. I'm just going to find this real quick. So, don't know if there's a few timestamps. Let's see, it's not timestamps there. I thought that was timestamps. It's not.
Second autopsy, conducted by an independent pathologist, would reveal he'd been murdered. Someone had to be protecting the truth. In modern investigations, surveillance cameras are more than just tools. They're silent witnesses, emotionless, impartial.
So this is an AI video. It's clearly an AI video. It does use real public information that is mostly confirmed to as far as I believe, as far as my research goes, and double checking this video, I believe all of this to be 100% true. So, having said that, it is an AI video, but that's okay. It's still getting the point across.
We're watching. But sometimes what they don't show can say more than what they do. Lowndes High School had 36 surveillance cameras positioned across hallways, doorways, and both the new and old gymnasiums. They were there to protect students, to provide accountability, to document everything.
Real quick. So it won't take me long at all. All I've got to do here, and then probably the bottom, or yeah, maybe up here, maybe up here. Where are we gonna go with it? Where are we gonna go with it? Where are we gonna go with it here? And I could throw that wherever. All right, so we can continue now.
But when Kendrick Johnson's family received the school's footage, What they saw wasn't a complete picture, it was a fractured narrative. Kendrick was last seen alive entering the old gym on January 10th, 2013. The time was somewhere around 1:09 p.m., but after that, the footage gets murky. One camera, positioned inside the gym, shows him walking in. Then, nothing. No exit, no interaction, just gaps. In a space where dozens of students moved through during the day, Kendrick's final moments simply vanish. The Johnson family requested all available footage from the school. They were told they were receiving every angle. But as their experts reviewed the files, disturbing anomalies emerged. Timestamps were not synchronized between cameras. Some skipped entire blocks of time. One looped a few seconds repeatedly, as though caught in a corrupt file. Another froze, right as Kendrick was supposed to appear in frame. Other videos were noticeably lower in quality, or appeared to be partial copies, compressed with metadata stripped. From 12:04 p.m. to 1:09 p.m., when Kendrick's whereabouts were most crucial, nearly every camera in the surrounding area experienced inconsistencies. Frames dropped. Clips lagged. Some were missing entirely. A forensic video analyst, hired by the family, reviewed the footage and concluded that at least 1 hour of relevant video had been removed or deliberately altered. Their assessment was blunt. The footage had been tampered with. Lowndes County officials claimed otherwise. They cited routine system maintenance, buffering errors, and outdated camera software as the culprits. But those explanations didn't match the nature of the cuts.
There was no evidence of system maintenance, by the way. And if there was, the FBI is holding it back. As far as the court stuff goes that's been public, nobody has talked about that. I haven't seen any judge statements on system maintenance being the reason that there wasn't footage. And if it's there, nobody's told the public about it, and nobody's told the Johnson family about it. And I feel like if they knew that would be very, very public. It would have, I would have seen that in any of these Wikipedia files. Like, for example, I could just go over their surveillance tape stuff. I mean, I've even got the DOJ pulled up, by the way, and the only two things I could find on their website was federal official statements. Like, no, even the public stuff, the public information that's out there that's recorded by them that they made public, it's not even on there. 290 hours of surveillance tapes from 35 cameras. I heard 36 at one point. I may have been wrong. Covered in the gym area, released to CNN, blah, blah, blah. Missing an hour and 5 minutes of footage. Found a result from camera systems that were not synchronized with one another. So some of the apparent lapses in coverage were found to result from camera systems that were not synchronized with one another. Do they think we're stupid? They're not wireless cameras. They're not wireless cameras. They're wired cameras operating on one joint system or a couple of joint systems mixed in together. Either way, it doesn't matter if one clock says 12:30 and one clock says 5:30. The fact remains that the exact cameras that would have seen Kendrick at the time of his death are just missing an hour. Missing a whole hour. And, you know, I'm just reading over this to make sure, because what I'm reading right now is the closest thing to that would have any official statements of why the camera, of other reasons the cameras weren't working. Okay, so with things being motion activated, I don't know about back then in 2013, but what I know now is the cameras I have at home, you can change the sensitivity on them. You can change them to be motion activated. You can change them to be noise activated and all of this. I don't think the school would have access to extremely cool, good systems that you could just change all these different things on. Obviously, it says here that they're motion activated. It depends on what the sensitivity is, how it was programmed. If you can't adjust the sensitivity, then how it's programmed matters. How sensitive it is matters, because you can cut lights off all day long and get away with things if the situation is right from the surveillance equipment's point of view, from that perspective. So as far as that goes, I think there's quite a few ways, and that's the only way to think about this anymore, by the way. If you hear me say something crazy like if you were going to hide a murder, you would do this. It's not because I'm going to hide a murder. It's because that's the only way to think about this, because it's clearly a murder. So you think like the murderer. And that's an age-old trick that everyone, the GBI, the FBI, the state of Georgia, they all failed to treat this like a murder. It makes no sense. See, motion activated using change in pixels, lights, blah, blah, blah. Attorneys for the Johnson family expressed fears and the camera footage was edited as part of a cover-up. Yes, that's how we all feel. However, analysis of the camera systems by the Valdosta Daily Times attempted to explain the anomalies, casting doubt on the theory of the cover-up. Of course, there's always going to be somebody on the other side that's like, there's no cover-up. The president of the Valdosta Loans County chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the former lead investigator for the chapter have stated that they believe the attorneys for the Johnsons have not been entirely truthful in their statements. Okay. And that there was no cover-up in this case. So as far as the surveillance tapes goes, I can't find anything else on the surveillance tapes. I'm trying to get to the suspects here, but there's just so much stuff to unpack and so many holes, so many contradictions in statements.
Or the patterns of distortion. What were the odds that so many systems failed at once, and all during Kendrick's final known hour alive? To the Johnson family, the implications were horrifying. Without that footage, they could not trace Kendrick's path, couldn't identify who entered the gym with him, couldn't verify if someone followed him, couldn't determine if someone left right after. Surveillance, once considered the most objective evidence, now became the very thing casting shadows across the case. In one clip, a pair of students can be seen walking down the hallway. Kendrick should be just steps behind them. But in the next frame, he's gone. Erased. The students gave conflicting timelines. Some claimed not to have seen Kendrick at all that day. Others gave vague, inconsistent answers. Yet no follow-up interviews were conducted by investigators. The most basic question, who was in the gym at the time, remained unanswered. Even the FBI, under pressure from public outcry, eventually agreed to review the tapes. They too acknowledged time discrepancies, but said they could not conclusively determine if the footage had been intentionally edited. No criminal investigation into the footage's chain of custody ever followed. No subpoenas were issued for raw files. No digital forensic sweep was conducted of the school's internal system. To the Johnsons, this wasn't just a matter of technical error. This was suppression. This was a system hiding behind procedural explanations while burying uncomfortable truths. If Kendrick had been alone, why remove the footage?
I'll tell you this right now. There's no subpoena for the raw files because the government already has the files. They already know what's on them.
If nothing happened, why make it so difficult to prove? The missing minutes weren't just gaps in a timeline. They were wounds in a family's quest for justice. And as the Johnsons pressed harder, they discovered something else. A rumor. A whisper that would change everything. That Kendrick Johnson may have had enemies, and that one of them may have had a reason to silence him. As the Johnson family continued to peel back the layers surrounding Kendrick's death, one name, then another, began to circulate through hushed conversations, classroom whispers, and community rumors. The whispers were about two brothers, both former classmates of Kendrick's, both athletes, and one of them had reportedly fought Kendrick before. Their names? Brian and Brandon Bell. According to school records, one of the brothers had a physical altercation with Kendrick on a school bus the year before. It had been dismissed at the time as typical high school roughhousing, but now it resurfaced as a potential motive. Some students claimed the fight was more serious than reported. Others said it never fully ended, that tension simmered beneath the surface, that Kendrick was being watched. The Bells came from a prominent family. Their father, Rick Bell, worked for the FBI. This connection, whether coincidental or consequential, raised suspicions in the community. Some believed that the family's influence might have shielded the boys from further questioning. Others believed law enforcement never took them seriously as suspects at all. No official charges were filed, no formal interviews were ever conducted with the brothers under oath. And yet, the Johnsons believed there was more. In 2015, they filed a wrongful death lawsuit in civil court. It named not just the Bell brothers, but 38 defendants in total, including school officials, law enforcement, and 3 classmates alleged to be part of a cover-up. The lawsuit read like a bombshell. It accused the Bell brothers of ambushing Kendrick in the gym, of killing him, either accidentally or intentionally, during a confrontation. It accused their father of using his FBI influence to interfere with the investigation, of suppressing evidence, of intimidating witnesses, of manipulating surveillance data. But proving murder in a courtroom is far harder than raising suspicion in public. Within months, the case began to unravel. Witnesses
Keep in mind, we're
recanted.
looking at an AI video.
Some claimed they were pressured to give statements.
Just listen.
One even admitted to fabricating key details. Others refused to testify at all. And so, the civil case, like the criminal one before it, collapsed under the weight of uncertainty. The Bells denied any involvement. They maintained their innocence throughout. And to this day, they have never been charged in connection with Kendrick Johnson's death. But suspicion doesn't always require a conviction. In the court of public opinion, the damage was already done. For Kendrick's parents, the lawsuit wasn't just about blame. It was about visibility. It was about forcing names onto paper, about pulling theories out of back rooms and into the light. Even if the case never went to trial, they wanted the world to know who they believed was responsible. And in their minds, justice had a face. But the story wasn't over, not even close. Because years later, long after the lawsuits, long after the protests, a mysterious confession would emerge. one that would either reignite the case or bury it for good. 8 years had passed since Kendrick Johnson's body was found inside a rolled-up wrestling mat. 8 years of unanswered questions, disputed autopsies, missing footage, and grief that refused to settle. For many, the case had long since faded from the headlines, filed away in the public's mind as unsolved. But for Kendrick's parents, the story was anything but over. And in 2021, just as the trail felt coldest, something unexpected landed on their doorstep. It was a letter. No return address, no signature. A raw, handwritten confession sent to local officials, and soon to the Johnsons themselves. The language was clumsy, the grammar flawed, but the content was chilling. According to the writer, Kendrick Johnson had been murdered in the gym, not by accident, but by design. The letter named individuals. It described a motive, and it painted a scene of violence, conspiracy, and deliberate concealment. It claimed Kendrick was beat to death as revenge for a personal dispute, and that multiple students were involved, with at least one acting as lookout. The body, the letter said, was hidden in the mat to buy time, to shift blame, to stage the scene. One of the names in the letter was already familiar to the Johnsons. It belonged to a former classmate Kendrick had once fought with, a name that had surfaced years earlier and never quite disappeared. The letter was immediately turned over to law enforcement. The Johnson family, cautiously optimistic, urged investigators to reopen the case fully. This wasn't speculation. It was a direct admission of guilt. At least, it seemed that way. The new sheriff of Lowndes County, Ashley Polk, had pledged transparency. He reopened the case and began reviewing over 17 boxes of documents, recordings, and evidence collected over the years. The confession was now a centerpiece of the renewed inquiry. But then came the twist. Investigators traced the letter's origin to a man already behind bars, a Georgia inmate with a long criminal record, fraud, theft, false reports, a history of manipulating the truth for personal gain. When brought in for questioning, the inmate gave conflicting stories. First, he denied writing the letter, then admitted it, then blamed someone else. He claimed he was pressured to write it, then claimed it was true, then took it all back. Sheriff Polk dismissed the letter as...
Remember what I said before about Charles Manson being used by the CIA. Once again, not saying the CIA is involved in this case. In fact, I don't think they are involved in this case. I think some other people are, though.
Unreliable. He cited the inmate's mental state, criminal history, and shifting testimony as evidence that the confession held no weight. The FBI, when consulted, agreed. There wasn't enough to reopen a federal case. And just like that, the newest spark in Kendrick's case was extinguished. But to the Johnsons, that letter, flawed as it was, represented more than hearsay. It confirmed something they had always suspected.
Once again,
people
AI
knew the
video
truth
here, but...
and were choosing to stay silent, even if the source was unstable, even if the motive was unclear. The details in the letter aligned too closely with the family's own suspicions. It had to come from somewhere. It had to mean something.
I do not think that the letter came from this guy in the jail. I think it's very easy to pin something on someone when they're crazy, especially from a government standpoint. I don't know if it's GBI, FBI, somebody else in the state, Valdosta Police Department, coroner's office who has a deal to bring a body to a hospital. You know, there's all kinds of conspiracies, all kinds of theories, all kinds of everything you could throw behind it.
The frustration was mounting. Year after year, Kendrick's name made its way back into the news, only to be followed by silence. For every breakthrough, there was a dismissal.
I want to...
Then claimed it was true.
I just want to back it up there.
Then took it all back.
Yeah. Point was, they've been known to blame other people in order to cover something up. I mean, that's a normal thing. That's something you see in thousands of murder cases. Once again, GBI, FBI, state of Georgia, or the Valdosta Police Department, or the coroner's office, we don't know. I was trying to have a complete thought there and bring it back full circle. Been going for a while, so...
Consulted agreed. There wasn't enough to reopen a federal case. And just like that, the newest spark in Kendrick's case was extinguished. But to the Johnsons, that letter, flawed as it was, represented more than hearsay. It confirmed something they had always suspected, that people knew the truth and were choosing to stay silent, even if the source was unstable, even if the motive was unclear. The details in the letter aligned too closely with the family's own suspicions. It had to come from somewhere. It had to mean something. The frustration was mounting. Year after year, Kendrick's name made its way back into the news, only to be followed by silence. For every breakthrough, there was a dismissal. For every clue, a denial. No charges, no arrests, no closure. But this wasn't just about the Johnsons anymore. Over the years, Kendrick's story had become a national symbol. A symbol of the cracks in the justice system, the disparities in investigative effort, and the families who refused to accept case closed as an answer. The letter, real or fake, reignited that symbol. It reminded people that justice delayed feels no different than justice denied. And still, the most haunting part remained. If Kendrick didn't die by accident, then someone out there knows what happened. Someone hasn't spoken. Someone may never. But the Johnsons are still speaking, still asking, still pushing, because the last chapter of Kendrick's story has yet to be written. By 2022, Kendrick Johnson's death had become one of the most widely debated and emotionally charged unsolved cases.
Also want to point out the AI video for some reason, and I didn't make this AI video, but for some reason it got letter confused with tape, and then so did I, just not thinking about the lack of continuity there. Once again, I wasn't ready as well to even talk about this today. It just hearing a statement, any news statement about this story is mind-blowing. I thought they had completely covered it up very well, and I thought that was the end of it. So if there's any lack of continuity here for me, it's something that I can address in the future, because I do have an idea of a couple of people that I can interview for this that could help with the autopsy side of things, and I might even be able to get somebody closer to the case. So some people that work down in Atlanta. So we'll figure that out for maybe a part 2, because it's just, with so many holes in a case like this, you want to go over them multiple times to just see how much you can narrow it down.
In the American South. It was no longer just about what happened inside a school gym. It was about trust, truth, and whether the system had ever truly cared to investigate. The case had been closed, then reopened, then closed again. Each time, the family's grief reopened with it. Determined to break the cycle of local denials, Kendrick's family turned to federal authorities. They pleaded for a full civil rights investigation. They believed, and publicly declared, that Kendrick had been murdered, and that the cover-up extended beyond their hometown of Valdosta. They reached out to the Department of Justice, to the FBI, to the media, and to civil rights attorneys. They demanded not only a re-examination of the physical evidence, but of the forces that had controlled the narrative all along. In 2013, the Department of Justice opened a formal investigation into Kendrick's death. Dozens of FBI agents were reportedly assigned to the case. Over 100 interviews were conducted. Thousands of pages of reports, school records, surveillance logs, and autopsy findings were reviewed. To the public, it seemed like progress. To the Johnsons, it felt like hope. But behind closed doors, the wheels of federal bureaucracy moved slowly, and, they would argue, without urgency. For 3 years, they waited. No updates, no breakthroughs. And then, in 2016, the Justice Department issued its conclusion. They found, again, that there was not enough evidence to pursue criminal charges. It was another official ruling of no foul play. Another chapter closed. Another heartbreak delivered in the form of legalese. To many in the Valdosta community, this ruling brought closure. But to others, particularly those who had marched beside the Johnsons, it felt like betrayal. What had happened to the missing footage? To the mysterious time gaps? To the second autopsy showing blunt force trauma? What about the conflicting statements, the unusual positioning of Kendrick's body, the clean shoes, the missing organs? So many questions, yet no charges.
I don't remember if we've gone over this, but another piece of evidence was blood on the wall that was not near Kendrick's body, like near the wall. I think someone cracked him over the head real good and tried to stage a scene. And then I think it was clearly, and I could turn this off now because it's the rest of it's just stuff people know already or stuff that we could talk about on the inevitable part 2 of this that will happen one day. And in order to stage something, they put him in a mat. Tried to make it look like he was grabbing something. I don't know what they were trying to do. Maybe they thought that they would be able to come back and retrieve the body later. And was just trying to get him as out of sight as possible at that point and had to make a run for it and had to get the hell out of there. Tried to retrieve it later. Couldn't get into school. I don't know. I really don't. It's a very, very awkward situation that doesn't make any sense. And no one should stop talking about this case because cases like this blow the doors open on massive amounts of corruption. They always have, they always will. This isn't a normal murder case. This isn't a normal accidental murder case. This isn't a normal accidental death case. There is nothing normal about the murder and the harvested organs and the stuffed body and the confessions and the police somehow getting led to a man in jail, to 2 students who were big suspects having connections to the FBI, to the FBI also reviewing the case and looking at the case, to inconsistencies in the camera footage. There's nothing normal about how this went down. So for the federal judge to continuously shut this case down it shows that there are clear records somewhere that are being hidden by the FBI or the GBI or the state of Georgia. There are clearly records being hidden. There are pieces of evidence that are being hidden to protect whoever is involved in the murder of Kendrick Lamar Johnson. And we'll dig into it more at another time. I have my own court cases to deal with. So I'm going to try to get in contact with those people I mentioned and see if we can't get a good interview out of a couple of people, or just some statements and maybe some paragraphs rather than statements on what a person who does an autopsy would think about this entire case, and looking at the evidence that was at least published, that was released, what they think about the conflicting ideas on the first autopsy and the second autopsy, and what they think about the rest of it. And maybe we can get somebody closer to the case. So it's been fun. I think we are done.